the floor is yours. Take it away.
Thanks,
Awesome.
David.
Thanks, David. Thanks, David. And people do want to hear from you. But Jill, this is going to be great. I've loved getting to know you. Before we get started, I thought it'd be a great idea for people to hear a little bit about your background, because you have a phenomenal background. And so could you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much, Ken. Happy to be doing this chat with you. I am currently at PayPal looking after our PayPal brand as well as Venmo and all of our consumer marketing activity. It has been an incredible run. I come at this with a long history in the payments and tech category. I spent the good majority of my career and life, as I look back on it, at MasterCard. I spent 22 years there and did lots of different things from sales to strategy. The last thing I did at MasterCard was look after our priceless platforms and look and transformed those into digital assets and programs and platforms. And it was an amazing place to grow up as a human and as an executive. Yep. And in between my kind of trajectory in payments, I spent 3 years at National Geographic, where I was the chief marketing officer. And that was another incredible brand to work on, and was a part of taking one of the most iconic brands in the space of purpose in the planet and working on ways to take a much loved physical experience through its iconic magazine and bring it into the digital age. Lots of focus on social and the incredible work that the team did there and making it the most followed brand on social media with well over 100 million Instagram followers. So feel lucky to have worked on so many great and relevant brands in my career.
It's great. Thanks, Jill. And just for the audience, I know many people know me from doing these prior. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and to answer one of the questions already on the Q&A, those diplomas are not mine, they're my wife's. So I'm more of a business startup, folks. I founded MobileFuse 10 years ago. We work with many agencies and brands, specifically on our Receptive Moments platform, building out a lot of great creative for folks. So, all right. So let's talk about PayPal and what's going on over there, because there's a lot going on. There's a major shift that we talked about this, right? And can you explain to the audience a little bit about what that shift is that's going on in PayPal? Because PayPal obviously was really founded in the electronic world, in the internet world, right? And I've always thought of it originally as a way you could pay for things online. So what's going on over there?
It's a great time to be at PayPal. It is energized and intense and ambitious. So yeah, this version of PayPal was founded about 6 years ago. It was a spin-off from eBay. And our CEO, Dan Schulman, came to start this version of PayPal. And one of the things that's been really rewarding about working at PayPal is our belief in our mission, which is to democratize financial services. And everything that we're doing is really leading towards that, and really taking our fundamental value prop of facilitating digital payments and expanding that into a full suite of financial solutions for consumers as we expand the functionality that lives in our digital wallet that consumers access through our app. And so it's really been accelerated as a result of COVID. You know, COVID really supercharged this shift from physical to digital shopping. There's an incredible stat from McKinsey. In the US alone, US e-commerce penetration experienced 10 years of growth in 3 months.
Wow.
And so when you look at that kind of fundamental shift, as a platform, we really wanted to make sure we were ready to meet our consumers where they were. They were wanting to shop at more places more often. We saw that more than 40% of consumers shifted their shopping from physical stores into, the digital space. And so that meant doing more in the way of educating consumers, bringing more small businesses onto our platform, and launching solutions that made it easier for consumers to use PayPal. So while we are proudly digital first, one of the things that was really important to our consumers and to our merchants was to ensure that as consumers were in the physical world, there were safe ways to pay, and that they could pay touch free. And so we accelerated our plans to launch physical acceptance through QR codes. So there's been a big focus on that, really understanding that consumers were looking for financial flexibility. So launching our buy now, pay later product, a pay in 4 installment program to give people more control and flexibility. Launching a crypto solution. So really bringing to bear over the last year a lot of the roadmap and vision that was intended to deliver that democratization of financial inclusion for the world.
So you mentioned QR codes, right? And historically, obviously, most consumers don't think of that as a payment method, right? Right. It's typically credit card. You type in your numbers, or you insert your card or swipe your card, right? And QR codes historically, I mean, the last time I used a QR code was to look at a menu outside of a restaurant, right, outdoors, and the menu came up. So tell us the experience and how a QR code is used, and why PayPal decided on that.
Yeah, QR codes are certainly not new, but they have definitely had a renaissance and lots of momentum as a result of COVID. The use case that you shared is a really strong example of, again, I think, meeting consumers and businesses where they are right now, which is facilitating access to information and commerce through your phone, which we're all so comfortable with, right? Everyone touches their phone, you scan the QR code. And I'm sure everyone's experienced the menu functionality, so that people feel more comfortable and confident as they get out and get back into restaurants. And we have applied that to how consumers can access their funds across both PayPal and Venmo. And so it was a way for us to bridge that gap between the digital world and the physical world. So, we've got 2 use cases for it. One, which has been incredibly popular with small businesses. We launched QR code late last year, and when we closed the year, we had over 600,000 small businesses who had signed up to accept payments with QR codes. And so it's a, easy solution where they, are able to print out a static QR code. And maybe some of you have seen this at farmers markets or at food trucks. You simply print that out, stick it on your food truck or at your stall, and a consumer pulls out their phone, their PayPal or Venmo app comes up, and you're able to pay with that. And then we've got solutions for large enterprises like CVS, which went live. We've done some really great content to promote that, including a fun how-to video with Neil Patrick Harris, which was a story in and of itself as far as how we pulled that off in the midst of COVID. But, in that environment, it's very similar to other app purchases that are pervasive at merchants like Starbucks, where you simply pull up your app and you scan your own QR code. So again, I think consumers are getting more and more familiar with paying with their phones through different methods, and QR codes are definitely, driving a way for consumers to access those funds wherever they want to shop. And we have over 10 million consumers who have shopped in the physical world using a QR code with PayPal.
Wow, I can't believe that number, 600,000 merchants in the first year. That's incredible. And congratulations on the rollout with CVS. It's got to be exciting. And I'm sure there's many other major merchants coming really soon. So
yeah, watch this space. You'll be able to shop at Nike and Bloomingdale's, Levi's, Macy's. So we've signed a lot of big merchants, which is really exciting. And it shows it's doing a job for consumers and for merchants as they connect buyers and sellers.
Wow, great. Now you mentioned Venmo, right? So
Yeah.
Venmo, I mean, it's a different type of use case. And for a lot of people don't know that PayPal owns Venmo. How does Venmo play into this whole strategy?
Well, Venmo is such a great experience, right? It's everyone's go-to app to pay friends and family. And the cool thing about Venmo, and I think one of the reasons why it became so pervasive and relevant, was that it really kind of took away that stigma and taboo of how do you ask someone to pay you back? And it made it fun and social and easy. And so it's a way to pay friends and family back, but it's also a social platform. One of the things I love to do is, to sort of see, who are my friends paying? Like, what's happening? And as we have gone through this experience of COVID, it has been really interesting to look at how our Venmo community has leaned into the platform to help out friends, to help out essential workers, to support people who needed money. So we started to see all these really great acts of human kindness and generosity play out on the Venmo platform, and that has allowed us to reignite some of the passion from our community through an activation that we launched in COVID called Venmo It Forward. We just saw all this kind of natural generosity and people wanting to help each other out, and so we activated this idea of Venmo It Forward. And when we saw these acts of kindnesses, we would send $20 out to a user and ask them to send it back out again with great momentum and results. And Ellen ended up activating it on her show and getting behind it. And so it was really fun to see how a community-based social platform was driving that level of kindness, generosity, and human ingenuity. And, it was fun. We were looking at the notes, right? I mean, hopefully everyone out there uses Venmo, and you see that a lot of the activity plays out through emojis. And, we saw big shifts in things like, less pizza and less beer, more masks, more firefighters, more, nurse emojis. And so it was, the shifts were playing out in front of us real time, which helped us architect Venmo It Forward and lean into how consumers were using the platform at that moment.
Well, you'd be happy to know that the Harlan household, we're big Venmo users. So just a shout out, it's a great platform, and we use it for so many reasons, babysitters, paying for lessons, whatever have you. So it's a great platform.
I love that. And I think, Ken, that, paying for lots of things is what's a big area of focus. So Venmo is expanding into the world of payments as well. So bringing on merchants. So you'll be able to start to not only pay friends and family, but use Venmo at checkout, use Venmo at, food trucks and some of the other use cases that I mentioned earlier. So bridging that gap between paying friends and family and paying the merchants that you shop most at.
Can't wait to see that. That's great, and good luck with that. So marketing, right? So you have a lot. So you just mentioned how PayPal and Venmo with merchants and consumers. So there's almost two major groups that you're trying to market to, right? You have merchants you're trying to enter into and have the solutions that you just mentioned across many merchants, and then obviously for consumers to utilize across those merchants. So let's tackle one of those at a time. Which one do you want to tackle first? Marketing to merchants or marketing to consumers?
Let's start with consumers.
All right.
Where my passion lies.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So this is obviously, you have, like you mentioned, you have both PayPal and Venmo. What's the strategy to get this messaging across, to consumers, right? And so let's start there at a really high level.
Yeah, absolutely. We closed last year with 377 million customers around the world using PayPal and 70 million Venmo customers. And so with that, we have the ability to leverage our own platforms to drive a lot of our education and awareness content. And our app continues to become more and more useful and fun to play with on the PayPal as well as the Venmo side. And so as we've built these new solutions, it has been a lot of fun educational content. We've leaned into a lot of how-tos as COVID hit, as I shared, we saw this incredible shift. And we also saw lots of new consumers trying PayPal for the first time. And we saw, one of the great things about being a consumer marketer is, what are the real jobs that our brands do for humans? And so we started to see an older segment of consumers who were starting to adopt digital payments. And as we looked into some of the payment notes, we saw that one of the things that they were using it for was to stay connected to friends and family who may be far away, grandkids who they couldn't see. And so you started to see that play out in a lot of our content. We launched a campaign at the onset of COVID around the essentials that we all need, our everyday essentials. And we started to celebrate the little wins that were playing out, because despite all the challenges, it really was like this moment of ingenuity and optimism. And so we saw grandparents who were sending money to their grandkids to buy baking goods so that they could spend time with their kids through their grandkids through a Zoom to bake a cake or something like that. So we started to look at all these really fun, positive, ambitious ways that people were using the platform, and to create little stories, and look at that as, yes, you can't see each other in the physical world, but you can bake a cake together across FaceTime or Zoom. And we were celebrating those little wins and those little moments. So there was a really great moment of saying, let's use this data to create stories and content that connects with our audience in the ways that they're using our platforms today.
Those are great opportunities. There's great examples of opportunities that you're obviously leveraging across many different formats, right? What kind of challenges are you seeing with, or obstacles with, reaching consumers with that kind of messaging?
Well, I think as marketers broadly, as we were listening to the last conversation, consumers have limited capacity, right? So we're actually, as marketers, kind of vying, in this attention economy. And so, capturing consumer attention and the need to touch them frequently with relevant messages is a big challenge. And so, that has really forced us to look beyond our own platforms to find ways in. So I mentioned the incredible partnership that we had with Neil Patrick Harris as we launched our CVS campaign. How do we work with influencers who are reaching the audience that is relevant to us, where we want our solutions to resonate, and create fun content that is both educational and shareable. We've done a lot of work on our own social channels to again, tell the story of the platform and its role as an enabler. So it's about content, it's about working with publishers in new ways, and continuing to, as we've talked a lot about in the last few sessions, like test and learn, right? Just see what works, see what resonates with the audience, and we're working in very agile fashions to learn and pivot as we go.
There's I don't know if it was Harvard, but there's I saw a study not too long ago where the attention span of a human versus a goldfish. What do you think has more of an attention span? That's the point. That is the challenge for marketers, right? Whether it's a catchy catchy ad leveraging a famous person, or an interactive ad unit, or something using sight, sound, and motion, right? There's a lot of different ways, but that's a major challenge. So now, flipping over to, so consumers totally get it, the opportunities, the challenges, right? And you sound like the product itself, if you find a creative ways to reach people, it's going to be really successful, right? How about with merchants, right? Merchants are totally different, right? They're, large retailers to small retailers. What do you see as let's talk about first the opportunities, and then maybe the challenges from a marketing standpoint, reaching merchants?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Ken. I mean, the need state of a small business versus a large enterprise are quite different. And even within the small business sector, a true, sort of brick and mortar small business versus the likes of the use cases I keep talking about, those who sell at farmers markets or in a food truck are very different. So, understanding again where to find those merchants. We do a lot in the way of, lead gen tactics that are, really targeted, that focus on those, very use cases. As we've launched our seller profile product, we have a small business profile on Venmo. It really has been a strategy of understanding who are the merchants who are most in need of accepting payments on Venmo and starting to actually feature them in our marketing and in our in-app promotions, so that we have a way to, again, sort of bring that human relationship between people who are buying from that merchant and how they are connecting with them into the stories that we tell. And so, as we tell the stories of one hairdresser, it connects with another hairdresser out in the network and starts to drive that kind of virality and connection. So, again, I think it's all based in, what we do as marketers. What's the problem that we're trying to solve? What's the insight? How do we create content that's engaging and shareable and will, accelerate the utility that we can bring to, both the seller and to the consumer, and then in the large enterprise space, as we bring on the likes of CVS, it's how do we show up as a partner? What are we going to do in the way of driving not only awareness and foot traffic, but education and in-store promotions and really investing in driving conversion. So lots of legs on that stool for sure.
Makes sense. So I'm moving over to Q&A, and so one of the first questions here was, do you see? I'll make it shorter. Do you see? Do you approach your marketing strategy differently when it comes to PayPal and Venmo, or is it similar?
They're two really distinct brands. And, again, on the consumer side and on the merchant side, it really starts with, who is the target that we are trying to connect with? What is the human insight? What is the job to be done? So, we definitely are organized around the same marketing foundations, but Venmo is inherently a social app. So what we can do to drive engagement through the product itself is different than what we can do on the PayPal side of the house. We're looking at how we can work with publishers and influencers. Who those influencers are different, depending on the brand and what we're trying to achieve. But we're organized around a really strong full funnel playbook that starts with, what does the brand stand for, whether it's PayPal or Venmo? How do we continue to drive, awareness and consideration and preference through content? And how do we, ensure that we're connecting with consumers and doing the jobs that they need us to be done through the product experience and how we seek to delight them through what we offer.
Makes sense. All right. Another question. So this one is, first of all, they're thanking you for your stellar work at National Geographic and your focus on purpose there and utilizing that within, your content and strategy. Do you have plans, or are you already currently utilizing purpose when it comes to any of your strategies or potential future strategies here?
Yeah, absolutely. PayPal is one of the most purpose-led companies that I've worked for. As I shared, our structure was secondary to our mission of the democratization of financial services, and we lean into that quite regularly. One of the things that I was really proud of that PayPal did last year was, as the Black Lives Matter conversation was playing out, and there was a real call for how we addressed racial injustice in the world. PayPal quite quickly established a $550 million fund to support Black and minority-owned businesses. And it's really been one of the reasons that I, as a human, chose to work at PayPal was because of its purpose. I had been following Dan Schulman, the CEO, for quite some time, and saw the the things that PayPal decided to do that he would talk about, whether it was, the work that we did in the last government shutdown and providing interest-free loans to furloughed workers, taking a stand in North Carolina regarding, the situation with gender rights in stadiums and things like that. We always get behind our stakeholders and do the right thing. And it's very core to how we show up in the world. And I think it is something that we have to think about as far as how does that weave its way into our marketing. We do share great stories of how we connect buyers and sellers, how we invest in small businesses, how we invest in communities. And I think, as we double down on things like bringing PayPal in and Venmo into the world of physical commerce, and sort of helping Main Street come back open by enabling QR codes and connecting buyers and sellers in that way, I think you'll start to see the investments that we're making, not only in technology, but in some of those businesses as a part of our narrative.
Great. Another question here is, well, you already mentioned one of your favorite pieces of content with Neil Patrick Harris. Do you have a second favorite piece of content that you created for PayPal, Venmo, or both?
We did a really lovely holiday spot, and that was great on so many levels. It was, again, sort of putting PayPal in the background and telling our role as simply an enabler of what matters to people. It's a lovely human story of a father who sees his daughter practicing for the Nutcracker across Zoom, and his heart kind of breaking that she won't be able to do that performance live this year. So he turns their backyard into a set for the Nutcracker and dresses himself up like the Nutcracker. So if you haven't seen it, I think you simply can Google PayPal and Nutcracker. So the content was great. It received lots of attention and awards. But the thing that I really loved about that was that we worked with Tongle, which is an open source platform that works with creators and producers around the world. And that was a great sort of intersection of PayPal's purpose and our interest in, getting contractors and independent consultants back to work in COVID through how we created that story. So it was kind of like our purpose coming to life through how we built creative that also resonated with consumers.
Great, that's great. Well, last question, and then there'll be a quick question after that. But the last major question here was that I'll pick is because we actually talked about this, was the notes in Venmo. Do you leverage that or plan to leverage that data and content for marketing?
Yeah, well, just this weekend during the Super Bowl, we had a fun little poll of getting people to kind of choose which they thought would be the most used food emoji. So we do a lot to, leverage that to take surveys and drive engagement, which reminds me, it was a choice between pizza, hamburger, sushi, which was prevalent on there. And I need to find out what was the most used emoji. I'll tweet that out earlier. If you're following Venmo on social, you'll see it. So yeah, we activate through the use of emojis and really fun stickers that we use as well.
And the last real quick question here is, what's your last Venmo purchase?
I just sent my daughter some money so that she could treat her friends